It's the second time in 3 years that golf, ranked number 2 in the world, has lost in the first round at Wimbledon. Golf had 29 unforced errors and 9 double faults in Tuesday's match. Wimbledon has been tough on golf. Of the 4 Grand Slam events, Wimbledon is the only one where she has never made it to the semifinals. The Dodgers beat the Chicago White Sox 6-1. Shohei Ohtani hit his 30th homer. The Angels kicked off their 6-game road trip with a 4-0 win in Atlanta. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, yo, come on.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah,
Gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need.
Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it.
Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power. Fight the power. 1, 2, 3, go. I'm gonna try to keep it coming. Things ain't always smooth, but I'll be alright as long as I can find the groove. Yes, I will. Somehow I know that I can make it. You seem to like my style. Don't you worry, I'm gonna be around.
Live from historic Liberty Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me. Back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavismiley.com. That's thetavismiley.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, 2 conversations. Up first, retired United States Army Major General Dana Petard is back with his assessment of global hotspots as new polling data suggests that most Americans disapprove of U.S. involvement in the Israel-Iran war ahead of Donald Trump's scheduled meeting at the White House with Bibi Netanyahu just days from now. Something tells me he ain't going to quite embarrass Bibi the way he does every other head of state. Remember how he did Cyril Ramaphosa? South Africa, Bibi ain't gonna get that kind of treatment. Trust and believe it. But Bibi Netanyahu on his way back to the White House for another meeting with Donald Trump. We'll see how that goes. But again, that meeting is being held against the backdrop of new data suggesting that most of us disapprove of our involvement in this Israel-Iran war. We'll do that on the top side of hour 2. On the B side of hour 2, the double heiress, Mitzi Perdue Farms and Sheraton Hotels. How about that? Wouldn't you love to be an heir or an heiress? But how about a double heir, a double heiress? The Perdue Farms fortune and Sheraton Hotels. That's Mitzi Perdue. We'll talk to her about what the super rich can learn from her humble and frugal billionaire lifestyle. We will talk about what Mitzi Perdue calls the emptiness of taking and the joy of giving when she joins us on the backside of hour 2. In our third hour today, 2 more conversations. Up first, just in time for the release of Jurassic Park Rebirth in movie theaters today. Lisa White, Director of Education and Outreach at the University of California Museum of Paleontology in Berkeley, breaks down fact versus fiction, the Jurassic Park franchise storyline versus her real work as a social justice dinosaur expert. For all you science lovers, we'll do that on the top side of our 3. On the B side of our 3, speaking of movies, the co-founder of the Black Film Critics Circle, Mike Sargent, shares his summer movie picks. That's again on the backside of hour 3. But in this first hour today, a conversation with one of the nation's leading historians and most widely read scholars, Dr. Ibram X. Kendi, recently named as the inaugural director of the newly established Howard University Institute for Advanced Study. I'm honored to have him on this program for the hour. Over the course of my career, I've been just delighted to use the platforms I've had to introduce a lot of people to the nation. And I have watched Ibram Kendi for years now just soar higher and higher and higher. But long ago, before the rest of y'all knew him, we had him on on my shows way back when. And I just have, again, just joyed in watching the way that his books have sold millions and millions and millions of copies, and the regard and respect that he has endured for himself over these couple of decades. Ibram, it's good to hear your voice, my friend. It's been too long. How are you, sir?
I'm well. It's good to hear your voice, and I actually still remember. I think my first ever television interview was with you, and so I'm so thankful for you and all the people that you've introduced to the public, including myself.
No, I recall that conversation quite nicely, and it was a rich dialogue then. But again, I'm quoting Issa Rae, I'm rooting for everybody black, and I just love when I see black people just soar. As I said, it makes me smile. And my role in it is very, very small. I mean, God has blessed me with these platforms, and I use them to try to expose the nation and the world to people I think they need to hear. And it's always nice to be proven right when you introduce the world to somebody, and their work is so deep and so rich and so plentiful that it's impossible to ignore their contributions. So I celebrate you, Ibram, and I'm honored to have you on this iteration of my media work. Your first time on this program, but not your last, and it's just great to hear your voice. As I mentioned a moment ago, you are now at Howard, and congrats on that. I'm just laughing. Every Negro I know is going to Howard these days. It's like everybody's at Howard, and I ain't mad at the Bison. I ain't hating. It's a legacy institution, and I just love, again, I'm rooting for everybody black, right? I'm glad to see Howard pull all these brilliant scholars to that particular campus. So why Howard for you as the director of the Institute for Advanced Study, Ibram?
Well, as I think first and foremost, I'm an intellectual historian. Particularly, I study the history of Black thought. And when we think of the United States in particular, and when we think of Black thinkers who've made an impact, who've transformed our country, who've defended Black people, who've challenged racism, many of those thinkers have come through Howard. And many of those thinkers were trained by people at Howard, and many of those thinkers gave some of their greatest ever speeches, at Howard. I'm thinking of a speech, or I should say a debate Malcolm X had in 1961 when he debated Bayard Rustin, and at Howard. And so for me, thinking about my next step and thinking about where I wanted to really spend the rest of my career, thinking about where I felt I could make the most impact, thinking about where I felt my work could be the most protected and nurtured, it was a no-brainer in Howard University.
Yep. Alongside being the inaugural director of the Howard University Institute for Advanced Study, he also is co-founder of the Emancipator, author of 10 or so New York Times best-selling books. His latest is called Malcolm Lives. Speaking of Malcolm X, Malcolm Lives, the official biography of Malcolm X. For young readers, we are honored to have for the hour Howard University professor Ibram X. Kendi on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Hey, Ma, I've been meaning to talk to you about some new COVID information I saw online. I read that black folks like us with certain conditions like diabetes, heart disease, mental health conditions, or being 50 and older, like you, are at high risk.
Boy, you sound like a commercial.
I'm just saying. I know you love your ginger teas and essential oils, but remember, there are treatment options for COVID-19.
I promise if I get sick again, I'll call my doctor to ask about my options.
Visit WeTalkWeRise.com to learn more. Brought to you by Pfizer.
Small businesses are the heart of America. But you don't have to go it alone. As the nation's largest nonprofit resource of expert business mentoring, SCORE has helped millions of entrepreneurs build their businesses for free. Get the connections, education, and guidance you need with SCORE. We're ready to help. Find a mentor today at score.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
In a song, let me demonstrate the force of knowledge. Knowledge reigns supreme. The ignorant is ripped to smithereens. What do you mean when you say I'm rebellious? Cause I don't accept everything that you're telling us. What are you selling us? The creator dwelling us. I sit in your unknown class while you're failing us. I failed your class cause I ain't with your reasoning. You're trying to make me you by seasoning. Up my mind with C. Jane Run. See John walking a hardcore.
It's KRS-One with the You Must Learn classic track from Chris, and appropriate in this hour because we're joined by Ibram X. Kendi, who is the new director, the inaugural director of the Howard University Institute for Advanced Study, co-founder of the Emancipator, author of a plethora of New York Times best-selling text, and his new one is called Malcolm Lives, the official biography of Malcolm X for young readers. Didn't take long for our socials and phones to start blowing up, Ibram, when people realized that you were on today in our first hour. I want to read something that just jumped into my phone, which I found fascinating. And it says, Tavis, in addition to his content, his voice is just lovely to listen to. In addition to his content, his voice is just lovely to listen to. So one, I know Ibram appreciates the compliment, but what's behind that compliment actually fascinates me, and I've noticed this since the very first time we talked years ago in that first conversation and watching you all these years. And I'm curious as to how you process this, if you ever have. You address so many hard topics. I mean, people either love you or they loathe you. They like you or they hate you, just based on the truth that you tell in the work that you do. And I've always been fascinated because I think that the tenor of your voice lends itself to the hard stuff that you cover. You seem to never get riled up. You can talk to anybody, no matter what they throw at you. You have this sort of, this level at which you speak, this way that you present, that always comes across as being it makes what you say easier to digest. It makes what you say easier to receive, even when you're saying things that are hard truths for our white brothers and sisters to wrestle with. Your voice has always been like that, timbre, that soft delivery.
I think so, for the most part. I oftentimes have to be, even when I give a public talk, I'm reminded, or I'm on Zoom, people tell me to speak up because I'm soft spoken. But I think part of it for me is, I think those of us who study racism, who write books on racism, who research racism, are typically politicized. We're sort of presented to the public, even to Black people, as these almost like political operatives, when, ultimately and fundamentally, we're scholars, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a scholar, I'm an historian.
Mm-hmm.
I study this topic and present my research to everyday people in ways that they can understand. And I do that because I want to abolish racism. I mean, and I want people, particularly Black people, to be able to not only look in the mirror and see that there's nothing wrong with them, but also be able to turn around and see the actual problem, which is not Black people. But I also know that I, in many ways, even as I'm sort of writing and even to a certain extent educating others, I'm still writing and educating myself. And so there's a certain level of humility that I approach the work and the speaking with, because there was a time in which I didn't understand these topics. There was a time in which I thought that the problem was, let's say, Black people as opposed to racism. So I also give grace to anyone who's still sort of on their journey, just as I'm on my journey. And I think that also potentially shows up in my voice. I'm not trying to talk down to anybody. I'm just talking across from people like we're in the salon or barbershop.
Yeah. You said two things. You used two words that I have quotes around my office. I've always been that way. I live by certain mantras, and you use two words, honor and grace. And there are two mantras with regard to those words that I live by, and they certainly apply to you. One, the one with regard to honor is simply this: before honor comes humility. Before honor comes humility. If you would be honored, you must first be humble. Before honor comes humility. And with regard to grace, I wrote a book with a chapter titled this, we have to always save space for grace. Save space for grace, because we none of us has a monopoly on the truth, right? There is the truth, as I see it, Ibram. There's the truth, and there is the way to the truth. And you have to be humble enough and gracious enough to understand that everybody's not where you are. They've not arrived at where you may be in your understanding of the truth. So when you present the truth as you know it, understand, one, you ain't got a monopoly on the truth, but number two, save some space for grace. Allow other folk to catch up with you. We don't all wake up at the same time. And so I love the use of your words, honor and grace, and they certainly resonate with me. What's fascinating for me, again, going back to that very first conversation, I had no idea your career was going to blow up the way it has. But again, I celebrate that in ways you can't even imagine. But when I think about the work you've done for all these years as a historian, and now one that everybody knows, I'm going to get to this in a moment. There was at one point 2 or 3 of your books on the bestseller list at the same time. These white folk couldn't get enough of digging into your body of work, certainly after the murder of George Floyd. And I want to talk about that in a second here. But it is fascinating for me that you have chosen, or maybe been called. You tell me, many are called, few are chosen. But here you are in this space working on the issue that I regard as the most intractable issue in this country. And I don't know that I would want to spend my entire life working on an issue of such intractability. To that, you say what?
To that, I say that in many ways, in 1860, the issue of slavery was considered intractable. I mean, it was imagined that our ancestors would be enslaved forever. Enslavers were among the richest and most powerful people in the world. Of course, we know the Confederates were about to start a civil war to ensure the permanence of the enslavement of our ancestors. But despite that all, our ancestors still believed that the day of Jubilee could come. And that's why when the Civil War started, of course, our ancestors started running away from plantations to Union lines, even before Union lines would accept them. And that's why after the Emancipation Proclamation, upwards of 200,000 Black men signed up for the Union Army, because they believed, and our people believed all along, that the impossible, ending slavery, was possible.
Yeah, no, I hear your point. We have to always have infinite hope, to quote Dr. King, right? We have to always have infinite hope that these issues that we think are intractable can in fact be addressed. So let me ask you one question about Black folk and one question about the good white folk. I start the Black question first, because moments ago you said something that seems simple enough on its face. It seems in some ways prima facie in a conversation like this, and yet I think there's something there to wrestle with and to drill down into. And the comment I'm referencing is what you said moments ago regarding Black people, that you discovered that Black people are not the problem. Black people are not the problem. I don't need to tell you this. There are a whole lot of other Americans who see it very differently, that we are, in fact, the problem and have been since day one. But talk to me about this notion as it applies and shows up in your work, that Black folk are not the problem.
What that means is we live in a country where Black people are more likely to be impoverished, more likely to be unemployed, more likely to be killed by police, more likely to be dying of heart disease and cancer, more likely to be incarcerated. So then the question becomes, why is that the case? Why are Black people on the lower, even dying end of these racial disparities? And there's only two explanations for those racial disparities. One is Black people are the problem. We're more likely to be incarcerated because we're more dangerous and violent. We're more likely to have heart disease and cancer because we don't take care of ourselves as well as white people do. The other explanation is racist policies and practices, that we don't have access to, we're less likely to have access to health insurance or high quality care, or doctors who are going to treat us, not treat, quote unquote, our race. And so that then leads us to being more likely to die, let's say, of cancer and heart disease. And so I've shown in my work how even Black people have been taught to internalize notions that the reason why these inequities exist is because there's something wrong with Black people. And what that does is it causes us as Black people to spend our time fighting other Black people as if Black people are the problem. And then who does that let off the hook? Or what does that let off the hook? Racism.
Yeah. What then, this is getting good. I knew it would be whenever Ibram shows up. It's a rich conversation. What then would be the cure? What is the antidote to the white supremacy that is inside of us? Because I believe that every one of us has some level of white supremacy inside of us. I'm talking about Black folk now, Ibram.
Well, it's interesting, Tavis. I wrote a book entitled How to Be an Anti-Racist. And you had many Black people who assumed that book was for white people. And it always demonstrates to me that they didn't read the book, because almost the entire book is set in Black spaces. Almost every character is a Black character. It's largely a story of my life overcoming these internalized anti-Black ideas and ultimately realizing that there was nothing wrong with Black people in general, or Black men, or Black women, or Black poor people, or any group of Black people. And the problem was indeed racism. And so that antidote, I've long argued, is for Black people to be anti-racist, and which is to say for Black people to recognize that they are not better or worse than any group of people, And it is their responsibility to liberate themselves by challenging the larger structure of racism that's inhibiting us, because nobody's going to free us other than us.
I take your point. And for those who did read the book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, then you know exactly what he's saying, that it's written in black spaces and places. That book wasn't written necessarily for the good white folk. That was written for y'all. And so if you've not read it, I encourage you to read it so you can learn how to be an anti-racist. But you've written some of the other books that the good white folk have, in fact, been reading. As I said a moment ago, I at one point I just laughed. I'm looking at the list, the New York Times bestseller list and all the other bestseller lists on this particular week years ago, and I see 1, 2, 3 of your books all at the same time on the bestseller list. And this is after the murder of George Floyd, which just happened, as we know. We just commemorated that 5th anniversary. And I've always wanted to ask you this question, because I have my own way of processing this, but I'm not the author of these books. You are. So what was your thinking then or now about why so many white folk were buying your books? Because you don't get on, I've been on there a few times myself in my career, I know how this works. You don't get on the New York Times bestseller list if only black folk are buying your books. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, definitely.
You don't get 2 or 3 of them on there at the same time if only black folk are buying your books. So these white folks were buying your books. And I don't know if they were buying because they were curious about you, if in that moment they were trying to learn. I can give you 3 or 4 other reasons that have crossed my mind. Again, it's your conversation. but what was your take on why so many white folk were buying your books about racism?
Well, let me first say that I think that in many ways we as Black people have in certain cases become quite cynical when we see a Black person have a lot of success in a particular area that we don't expect it. Mm-hmm. And so we tend to assume, let's say, that a lot of white people are going to that movie directed by a Black person because somehow that Black person created it for white people or sold out in some particular type of way, or somebody becomes an incredibly important, television host or radio host with white sort of people listening to it because somehow they've sold out in some way. Mm. And I think that I just want to mention that because that type of thinking too is also an anti-Black racist idea. Yes. We have to recognize that sometimes people of other races are attracted to what Black people create simply because it's good. Mm-hmm. And so now there are other cases in which we know that, Black people are doing things, the Clarence Thomases of the world, specifically and receiving adoration because of they're of course selling out to white people. So I just want to first say that.
No, I received that. Yeah.
So I think to a certain extent, I wanted to make the books accessible to everyone. I also know that after the murder of George Floyd, there were many white people who were calling up their Black friends and asking them, what should I do? Or what books should they read? Mm-hmm. And some of the Black or even other peoples of color, their friends were like, you should read, Stand from the Beginning or How to Be an Anti-Racist. Mm-hmm. I also think that there were some white people who were trying to think about in an affirmative sense what they could be. Yes. And because I think they recognized that being, quote, not racist wasn't being necessarily anything. Yeah. And I think that the title of the, particularly How to Be an Anti-Racist, matched, I think, what certain segments of white America was looking for at the time. Yeah. And then finally, I think there were other white Americans who felt it was the cool thing to do. In other words, they saw other white Americans who were reading the book or posting about the book and they wanted to be part of the crowd. And so all they did was buy the book and they probably never even read it.
Yeah, it's like voting for Obama because it's the right thing to do, right? It's a cool thing to do. To be a white person voting for Barack Obama back then. Don't get me started on that. But I want to, when we come forward, I want to go right to that second to the last point you made, that many white people were buying these books to see what they could be. To see what they could be. I can't wait to interrogate that when we come forward with Ibram Kendi on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Sean Diddy Combs has been found guilty on 2 federal charges in his high-profile sex trafficking trial. A New York jury convicted the music mogul of 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, each carrying up to 10 years in prison. However, he was acquitted on the most serious charge, racketeering conspiracy and sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, which could have meant life behind bars. Diddy has avoided life in prison and any mandatory sentences. Here's commentary from Douglas Wigdor, civil attorney for Cassie Ventura.
At the end of the day, he needs to be sentenced pursuant to the guidelines and pursuant to what the law is. My understanding of that is that he faces significant incarceration.
Prosecutors claim Combs ran a criminal enterprise exploiting women, while the defense argued the relationships were consensual. Diddy's legal team is requesting that he be released from jail now. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Rapid radios are instant push-to-talk walkie-talkies offering national LTE coverage and no subscription ever. Business owners can now keep in touch with up to 200 staff members at one time. Go to rapidradios.com now for up to 60% off and free shipping.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
3 weeks ago, Coco Gauff was on top of the tennis world after winning the French Open. Today, the 21-year-old African-American star is doing some soul-searching after losing in the first round at Wimbledon to an unseeded player. Gauff, the number 2 seed at Wimbledon, lost in 3 sets to Diana Yastremska of Ukraine. It's the second time in 3 years that Gauff, ranked number 2 in the world, has lost in the first round at Wimbledon. Gauff had 29 unforced errors and 9 double faults in Tuesday's match. Wimbledon has been tough on Gauff. Of the 4 Grand Slam events, Wimbledon is the only one where she has never made it to the semifinals. The Dodgers beat the Chicago White Sox 6-1. Shohei Ohtani hit his 30th homer. The Angels kicked off their 6-game road trip with a 4-0 win in Atlanta. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, yo, come on.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah.
Gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey. I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it.
Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power. Fight the power.
Why thank you? Yeah.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if If your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time, whenever news breaks, while we're on the air. It's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580, and we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. And I thank you, thank you.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project. Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do you do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
In the world, and God we trust, an architect, doctor, maybe an actress, but nothing comes easy, it takes much practice. Like, I met a woman who's becoming a star. She was very beautiful, leaving people in awe, singing songs Lena Horne, but the younger version, hung with the wrong person, got her strung on that heroin, cocaine, sniffing up drugs.
I know I can be what I want to be, courtesy of Nas. You're listening to Tavis Smiley and Ibram X. Kendi, the inaugural director of the Howard University Institute for Advanced Study, co-founder of the Emancipator, author of a long list of New York Times best-selling texts. His new book is called Malcolm Lives, the official biography of Malcolm X for young readers. And we're going to talk about that book a little bit later in this conversation. His new book, again, it's called Malcolm Lives, the official biography of Malcolm X for young readers. I want to play a clip of Malcolm. There's so many great Malcolm clips to play. I haven't forgotten the question about the good white folk. I'm getting back to that in just a second. But I want to just let you know where we're going in the rest of this half hour as we talk about his new book, again, Malcolm Lives, the official biography of Malcolm X for young readers. Here's my question after you hear this clip. I am curious as to how one distills this kind of commentary, this kind of truth-telling. How do you distill this for young readers? And this is what I'm talking about.
You haven't got a revolution that doesn't involve bloodshed, and you're afraid to bleed. I said you're afraid to bleed. Long as the white man sent you to Korea, you bled. He sent you to Germany, you bled. He sent you to the South Pacific to fight the Japanese, you bled. You bleed for white people. But when it comes time to seeing your own churches being bombed and little black girls murdered, you haven't got no blood. So I cite these various revolutions, brothers and sisters, to show you, you don't have a peaceful revolution. You don't have a turn the other cheek revolution. There's no such thing as a nonviolent revolution.
The book is called Malcolm Lives, the official biography of Malcolm X for young readers. You heard my question earlier, Ibram. How do you distill all that for young readers?
Well, it takes time over the course of the book, but I think two different points that I tried to convey in the book. One is to really allow young people to understand the difference between nonviolence, self-defense, and aggressive violence, and how one who is engaged in self-defense, which is to say, we're not going to allow 4 little girls to be bombed, in Birmingham in 1963, or we're not going to sit in to a Woolworth in 1960 and allow ourselves to be beaten, by white sort of Klansmen. That's a very different concept than we're literally going to raise up an army and attack, let's say white people. And for the most part, I write about how Malcolm largely advocated for self-defense, as opposed to violence, except when it came to revolution. And so there is, of course, trying to allow young people to understand that I think Malcolm pushed back on this. He when it came to revolution, and more specifically when it came to strategies for revolution, he was an advocate of by any means necessary, meaning he rejected those who argued that the only way in which Black people should go about winning their freedom from racism is through nonviolence. He argued that we should have and be willing to put any sort of tactic on the table. And I think that that's one of the things I tried to convey, in the book.
Yep. Again, the book is called Malcolm Lives, the official biography of Malcolm X for young readers. Another in a long list of best-selling books written by our guest in this hour, Ibram X. Kendi. So we pivot now back to the question that I raised before the break, based on what you had said in terms of your response for why or how you were processing all these white people buying your book, certainly after the murder 5 years ago of George Floyd. One of the reasons, in case you've just tuned in, that Ibram Kendi gave why he thought so many people who are not Black were buying his text is that with regard to white people in particular, they wanted to wrestle with what they can be, And that phrase just jumped out at me for all the obvious reasons. So I ask you, with regard to white people, because it seems to me the flip side, what we were talking about earlier, even, the flip side of racism being intractable is that white people come to understand what they can be. So what can they be?
Well, first, let me say that in that book, In How to Be an Anti-Racist, I challenge the construct of not racist, that white people, let's say, should be striving to be not racist. I argue that there's no such thing, like Malcolm said, there's no such thing as a nonviolent revolution. In How to Be an Anti-Racist, I argue that there's no such thing as not racist, that one is either believing and recognizing the equality of racial groups and being anti-racist, or one is expressing ideas of racial hierarchy and being racist. One is either challenging racism, being anti-racist, or one is allowing the persistence of racism and thereby being racist. And so once I remove the construct of not racist and say to white people, either you're being racist or not racist, either you're being racist or anti-racist, which, by the way, a lot of people were very upset about that because they know they don't want to be racist, but then they know they're not anti-racist. So then they have to acknowledge that they're actually, since they're not doing anything to challenge racism, then like a person who's not doing anything to eliminate slavery, they're allowing it to persist. So of course there was massive pushback, particularly from centrist whites, against that idea. And they argued that, it's a simplistic binary, as if racist and not racist is not a binary. But in any case, I show how they can be anti-racist. And I show how when white people are actually anti-racist, they're less likely to be able to be manipulated, particularly by very powerful white Americans into doing things that are against their self-interest. So we sit here today talking about this, right after a series of right after the Republican Party passed a bill that's going to essentially transfer even more wealth from the poorest Americans to the richest Americans.
That's right.
And not all those poor Americans are Black and brown. Many of them are white. And most of the people who are going to receive that transference of wealth as a result of this big, ugly bill are going to be white. And so you literally, and then you have the people who voted for those elected officials because they somehow believed that they were going to protect them against dangerous Black and brown people who, of course, were here and not here. And that prospect of white people constantly being manipulated to support elected officials, to support corporate leaders who are literally moving against their own personal interests is a long-standing scenario of the racial politics, of the United States, and it will continue to be so long as these people, are being racist.
I'm laughing, Ibram, because we started this conversation with a comment from a listener about how soft-spoken you are. Y'all hear him projecting now, don't you? He is projecting now. That's what happens when he like a good preacher, he tunes up. That voice is projecting through the radio right about now. You can believe that. Now, when we come forward, speaking of racism, I want to talk and the big ugly bill. I want to give Ibram a chance to talk specifically about Donald Trump's racism, and we could spend hours. I could spend weeks talking about Trump's racism, so let me narrow what I mean by that. Donald Trump has us talking about all kind of stuff today that really, to my mind, represent, as I said many times before, weapons of mass distraction. What we've not talked enough about is what I raised the other day, the issue regarding these Haitians. We talk about immigration ad nauseum, ad infinitum as an issue, immigration, but we have not honed in on what he did the other day to remove protections for Haitians. This is why I keep telling y'all this is our issue too. We'll let Ibram talk about that when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
When you're hiring, have you ever felt like you're missing out on meeting truly great candidates for your roles? It seems impossible to find them, but they have to be out there somewhere, right? Well, they're not hard to find when you know where to go, and that place is ZipRecruiter. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day. And because these people are actively looking for jobs just like yours, it's easy to find the right person right away. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. But if you're not using ZipRecruiter, you're missing out. So see what it's like when the impossible is easy. When you go to ZipRecruiter.com/free right now to try ZipRecruiter for free. Once again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free. Never miss out on great candidates with ZipRecruiter.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is on a mission to fight hunger and provide nutritious food to those in need across our community. They partner with federal, state, and local programs advocating for better policies and funding for critical hunger relief programs like Cal Fresh, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. The food bank works with coalitions and local representatives to make sure hunger is addressed in every district of LA County. They also run nutrition education campaigns, raise hunger awareness, and source nutritious food for distribution, all while supporting regulations that allow food pantries to operate safely. Want to help? Visit lafoodbank.org or call 323-234-3030 to volunteer or find a food bank near you. Together, we can ensure that no one goes hungry in Los Angeles County. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
He's a paradigm pioneer and the top-rated African-American talk show host in the nation, according to Talkers Magazine. You're tapped in with Tavis Smiley right now.
Tavis Smiley and Ibram X. Kendi, the inaugural director of the Howard University Institute for Advanced Study. Delighted to have him on this program. His new book is called Malcolm Lives, the official biography of Malcolm X for young readers. My time is getting tight, Ibram. Let me hustle right quick here. So, as I said a moment ago, we could spend hours, days, weeks, months, years talking about Trump's racism, but I want to narrow it specifically to what he did and said about Haitians the other day. I'm sure you saw it. Your thoughts?
Well, I think it's first and foremost, we've spoken a lot about, there's been a lot of conversation about Trump being anti-immigrant. And I think that's a misleading construct, because when it comes to white immigrants, whether it's his own parents or his wife or people who finance his campaign, he has no problem with white immigrants. He has problems with Black immigrants. And so it demonstrates, like Haitian Americans, and so it demonstrates that he actually is anti-Black and anti-brown. And I think it's important for Black people, particularly African Americans, to think about it in that way, because we can be misled into believing that he is not against us because we're quote unquote not immigrants. But if you understand that his rhetoric is actually anti-Black as opposed to anti-immigrant, I think it allows people to then connect those policies against Haitian immigrants to the policies against African Americans.
I love that. I love that distinction. I guess the question is what kind of agency we have in this moment. You're a historian, and you've seen down through the centuries, the years, the ways in which Black folk have shown up and fought back. And as Jesse Jackson says, when we fight, we win. In moments like these, where these issues of race and anti-Blackness are concerned, what agency do we have, you think, to fight back?
I think we certainly have the agency to recognize the truth. We certainly have the agency to resist those powerful forces that are trying to subjugate us, and we certainly have the agency to not fear all the different mechanisms that this current administration is trying to sort of wage to prevent us from talking about the truth and resisting power. Now, obviously the odds, to use a term Malcolm would use, certainly, against us, but that doesn't necessarily mean we can't resist, we can't speak up, we can't be courageous.
In our remaining moments with Ibram X. Kendi, I want to circle, bring this thing full circle, that is, and close where we began, celebrating his appointment as the inaugural director of the Howard University Institute for Advanced Study. What are they going to do at the Howard Institute for Advanced Study? We'll do that when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
Nearly 7 million Americans aged 65 and older are living with Alzheimer's disease or AD. But did you know that Black adults aged 65 and older are twice as likely as white adults to develop AD? You may be able to reduce your risk by managing conditions like diabetes and high blood pressure, being physically active, eating healthy, and exercising your mind. To learn more about AD, the importance of early diagnosis and intervention, and a potential treatment option, visit treatalzearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com. This message is brought to you by AZI.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Ibram X. Kendi. I've got 3 minutes left. Ibram, I'll give all 3 minutes to you to say a word about the Emancipator and your mission there, and a word about the Institute for Advanced Study at Howard. It's all yours, sir. 3 minutes, go.
Sure. So yeah, we're going to be creating our new Howard Institute for Advanced Study, which is going to bring together intellectuals and creators, particularly those who study racism, to work on projects, that will be impactful. And one of the ways in which their work is going to be platformed is through the Emancipator, which is a digital publication that we created at Boston University that we're bringing over to Howard University. And this publication is one that covers racism and really the efforts against racism, like, of course, the original and the first major abolitionist newspaper, which was called the Emancipator. And so we're sort of bringing that abolitionist anti-slavery newspaper culture and import, to this new publication to really provide a platform for those who want to report on and understand and opine, on issues related to race.
They got it going on at Howard University. As I said earlier, I ain't mad at the Bison. They now have Ibram X. Kendi on their campus, along with a number of other great scholars, brilliant black scholars. And so we celebrate Howard University. We celebrate Ibram X. Kendi. Again, he's the inaugural director of the Institute for Advanced Study at Howard, co-founder of the Emancipator that he's bringing to Howard. All those best-selling books that you know all about. And his latest is called Malcolm Lives, the official biography of Malcolm X for young readers. I close where I began, Ibram. I am in awe and celebrate your work and your witness, and I see it as just that, a work and a witness, and you are always welcome on any platform that I am moderating. Thank you for your time, my friend.
First, Tavis, thank you as always. I really appreciate it.
Stay strong, brother. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Sean Diddy Combs has been found guilty on 2 federal charges in his high-profile sex trafficking trial. A New York jury convicted the music mogul of 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, each carrying up to 10 years in prison. However, he was acquitted on the most serious charge, racketeering conspiracy and sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, which could have meant life behind bars. Diddy has avoided life in prison and any mandatory sentences. Here's commentary from Douglas Wigdor, civil attorney for Cassie Ventura.
At the end of the day, he needs to be sentenced pursuant to the guidelines and pursuant to what the law is. My understanding of that is that he faces significant incarceration.
Prosecutors claim Combs ran a criminal enterprise exploiting women, while the defense argued the relationships were consensual. Diddy's legal team is requesting that he be released from jail now. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Rapid radios are instant push-to-talk walkie-talkies offering national LTE coverage and no subscription ever. Business owners can now keep in touch with up to 200 staff members at one time. Go to rapidradios.com now for up to 60% off and free shipping.